Hi. First of all, can I apologise for the noise outside? I live on the main road in the middle of London, and there's cars, and they're doing some building work as well. Right. Somebody sent me a video of David Wood talking about taqiyya and so on, and I, they actually, well, I think they wanted me to kind of agree with it and confirm it. When I see this sort of thing, I mean, stuff like that Robert Spencer says, Pamela Geller, Geert Wilders, and all these people, they give this impression that true Islam is the Islam of ISIS. It's the Islam of Al Qaeda. It's this very harsh, brutal form of Islam that the terrorists represent, and that moderate and peaceful Muslims are either lying, they're practicing taqiyya, so they're sort of hiding their true intention to take over the world and kill everyone and so on, or they're ignorant. So basically, all Muslims are either extremists or they're ignorant. True Islam is this harsh, horrible Islam. I mean, I feel I'm not a Muslim anymore. I don't believe in Islam, and there's loads of things in Islam which I take strong issue with. But this is nonsense. This is absolute nonsense. There is actually no such thing as true Islam. I mean, obviously, every Muslim you speak to will tell you, oh, yes, there is true Islam, and it just happens to be the one that I believe in. But, you can speak to 10 Muslims and you can get 10 different versions of Islam. Yeah. The idea of taqiyya originally was to protect yourself against danger. It's not a central part of Islam that everyone's taught. It's not something that is essential, especially in this day and age where we live in a safe society. But it existed in the past for some people because they were being tortured because of their faith, or they were being killed because of their faith. For example, many Shia under Sunni rule were, under threat, and so they lied about it. Also in Spain, when the Christians reconquered Spain, there was the Inquisition. The religion of David Wood, that religion of peace and love, were torturing Muslims, and so they had to lie about their faith to save their lives. There's nothing wrong with that. That's perfectly reasonable. This idea that taqiyya is some sort of special Muslim lying, that Muslims are uniquely deceptive and lying and cheating. Look, and this is just untrue, and it's something that affects all ordinary Muslims who are brought up to be honest and truthful, and they don't lie. There's no reason to lie. And when they say they believe in a peaceful, moderate form of Islam, that's what they believe in. And there are a lot of Muslims these days who have a lot of evidence for what they believe. So if they put forward, the view, for example, that the verses about warfare in the Quran only belong to that context and they don't belong in the 21st century, they're not lying. That's what they believe. If they say that, for example, in Islam, you're not allowed to hit a wife, and that verse that says وَضْرِبُوهُنَّ means something else, I don't agree with them. I think they've got a completely wrong interpretation. But they're not ignorant and they're not lying. That's what they actually believe. So there's obviously lots of Sufi Muslims. There's all sorts of Muslims who have their different interpretations. They're not ISIS. They're not Al Qaeda. They're not extremists. Nor are they ignorant, nor are they stupid. They actually believe it. So, to be honest with you, what a religion is, what is the true religion, is what that person believes. It's just like in Christianity. I mean, how many sects and groups and views are there in Christianity and in Judaism and in Hinduism? Why is it that these very far right bigots and haters want to insist that there is only one Islam? It's absolute nonsense. Look, the reality is, you look at Muslims and you will see 100 Muslims and you'll see 100 different versions of Islam. And the vast majority of them are not a threat to anybody. And there is no such thing as true Islam. And even if we were to look at groups like ISIS, they are selective. I mean, you can say that the moderates are selective. Well, so are ISIS. All the different groups are selective. So yeah, I just wanted to say that. And another thing they bring up is about abrogation. I mean, I haven't scripted any of this, by the way. I just kind of, because somebody sent me the video and I just thought I'd respond. This thing about abrogation. So some of these, far right people say, oh, it's all the nice bits have been abrogated, and all the horrible about war are the actual. Look, first of all, abrogation was a creation of later scholars. There's a couple of verses in the Quran which are vague and which are not really, one says, that God takes something away to bring something better. And many people say, well, that just refers to actually what's in the Quran. But it was later scholars that came with this idea that certain verses are Medinan verses and Meccan verses, but they can't actually date any of these verses accurately. They all disagree, and many people these days reject the whole idea about abrogation. And this idea that it's somehow the abrogation is getting rid of all the lovely verses, all the nice peaceful verses, this is absolute nonsense anyway. I mean, that's just not true. There are some selected verses which they say have been abrogated, but again, all the scholars don't agree on that. And as I say, many people these days reject the idea of abrogation. And this idea of taqiyya, I mean, it's just ridiculous. I was down in the Speaker's Corner the other day, and there's this lady, a Tommy Robinson follower, and every time a Muslim spoke, she said, everything that comes out of your mouth is a lie. It's taqiyya, taqiyya, taqiyya. And I tried to explain to her, look, this is not true. And she was accusing me of taqiyya. And I said, look, I'm not even a Muslim. And so she says, I'm a secret Muslim practicing taqiyya. I mean, what can you do, honestly? Look, if you want to have a debate about Islam, let's have a reasonable, rational, sensible debate. I wish there was a middle ground. There just seems to be these extremes that, those who sort of hate Islam, those who think, Islam is all perfect. Let's have a reasonable debate about Islam in the middle ground. As you can see, I didn't script any of this. This is just all off the cuff. So sorry about that. Assalamu alaikum.